The Stay family was a picture of the American dream. A loving, tight-knit family trying to carve out a peaceful life in the suburbs of Spring, Texas. In 2012, Stephen Stay, a 39-year-old real estate professional, and his wife Katie, a 33-year-old mother of 4, moved their family from California to Spring, seeking respite from the fast-paced, chaotic life they had left behind. They chose Spring not just for its peaceful atmosphere, but for its sense of community, safety, and promise of a brighter future. Stephen and Katie were committed to giving their children a life free from the struggles they had faced in California. They believed Spring, with its tree-lined streets and small-town charm, offered the perfect setting to raise their children and build their dreams. The family quickly became integrated into the community. Stephen worked hard to establish himself as a respected professional, while Katie, a nurturing and caring mother, focused on raising their children, Brian, 13, Emily, 9, Rebecca, 6, and Zachary, 4, who were the heart of their world. The kids were bright, full of promise, and innocent in their own ways. Brian, the oldest, had just begun navigating the tumultuous teenage years. Known for his kindness, he was an overachiever at Schindolf Intermediate School, where he excelled in his studies and helped his classmates. Emily and Rebecca were the inseparable sisters whose energy and curiosity lit up every room they entered. Emily, with her ever-curious mind, had just entered elementary school, while Rebecca was beginning to explore the world around her with that special childlike wonder. Zachary, still a baby in many ways, was learning basic skills like tying his shoes and singing the alphabet. To those who knew them, the Stay family was the embodiment of love and normalcy. They were like the family you'd see at a neighborhood barbecue or in the aisles of the local grocery store, laughing over cereal boxes and sharing stories of their daily lives. The typical family moments filled their days: backyard birthday parties, family movie nights, and Halloween decorations. From the outside, they were the perfect picture of suburban happiness. Yet, what the Stay family couldn't know was that the events that would unfold on July 9th, 2014 would destroy all of that in an instant. But every fairy tale has its dark side, and for the Stay family, that darkness was a man named Ronald Lee Haskell. Haskell, whose name would soon become infamous, was once a part of the Stay family's extended circle. He was Katie's sister's ex-husband, the man who had been married to her sister, Melanie, and had fathered children with her. On the surface, he was like many others, just another guy in the neighborhood, a father trying to make his way through life. But beneath the surface, Haskell was a different man. In his youth, Haskell had been a charismatic individual, someone with a sense of humor that could win over crowds, and a social presence that was hard to ignore. He had been voted class clown in high school and even crowned homecoming king. Yet, like so many men who harbor darkness beneath the surface, Haskell's outward charm masked something far more sinister. As Haskell grew older, the cracks in his personality began to widen. His marriage to Melanie was a rocky one from the start, and over time, it became clear that Haskell's personality was evolving into something far more disturbing. His controlling and erratic behavior grew more pronounced. Violence and emotional abuse started to dominate their relationship, leaving Melanie fearful for her safety. The situation escalated, and by 2008, Haskell's violent tendencies reached a breaking point. In June of 2008, he was arrested after a particularly brutal incident where he dragged his wife out of bed by her hair, struck her on the side of the head, and physically assaulted her in front of their children. The incident, which occurred in their home in Utah, led to charges of domestic violence and violence in the presence of children. Haskell was charged with simple assault, but the more serious charges of domestic violence were dropped. Haskell ultimately entered a plea deal, and he was convicted of simple assault. This legal compromise, though it held him somewhat accountable for his actions, did not address the larger issue of his behavior or provide real protection for his family. Despite the arrest and conviction, Haskell's violent tendencies did not subside. In fact, they seemed to intensify. By 2013, Haskell's marriage had fallen apart completely. Melanie, fearing for her safety, fled with their children to Houston, Texas, where she sought refuge at her sister Katie Stay's home. By the time 2014 rolled around, Haskell had become a man on the edge. His behavior was growing increasingly erratic, and his jealousy, possessiveness, and rage were leading him down a dangerous path. His divorce from Melanie in February 2014 only added fuel to the fire. Melanie had fled their home in Utah and sought refuge in Houston, Texas, at her sister Katie's home, hoping for a fresh start. But that move, one that seemed like a hopeful escape, would soon prove to be fatal for the Stay family. Haskell was not just angry at his wife's decision to leave him. He was consumed by rage, humiliation, and a sense of powerlessness. His ex-wife had left him, and in his twisted mind, everyone who helped her was now his enemy. His desire for revenge, which had been simmering for months, would soon boil over in an act of violence that would leave an entire family dead. Haskell's descent into violence didn't happen overnight. It had been a gradual process, beginning with his increasing frustrations over his failed marriage, his inability to control his wife's departure, and his growing belief that he was a victim in his own life. As his marriage crumbled, his obsession with Melanie, and now with her sister's family, grew. In the weeks leading up to the murders, Haskell began to fall deeper into a pattern of instability. He had quit his job as a delivery driver for FedEx months before, leaving him directionless. His sense of purpose was gone. There were no longer any real ties to his past. He was alone, angry, and filled with an overwhelming sense of injustice. Yet he still believed himself to be a victim, convinced that he had been wronged by everyone in his life, by his ex-wife, by his in-laws, by the very people who had once welcomed him into their homes. Haskell's path was a path of destruction, and he had no intention of stopping. He wanted revenge, and he wasn't going to stop until he had made everyone pay for what he perceived as their betrayal. As the days passed, Haskell carefully plotted his revenge. He knew exactly where he needed to go, Katie Stay's home. He wasn't just going to hurt Melanie's sister. He was going to hurt everyone in her life, everyone who had helped her escape him. On the morning of July 9, 2014, everything seemed ordinary in the Stay household. The sun shone brightly over the suburban neighborhood in Spring, Texas, where families enjoyed the tranquility of a quiet, suburban lifestyle. The children were at home, safe from school and ready to enjoy the warm weather that summer had brought. The usual morning routines unfolded with ease. Children laughing, parents working in their respective offices, and everyone heading about their business as though it were just another typical day. But in the back of the Stay household, the calm would soon be shattered by a knock on the door that no one could have anticipated. At around 11 a.m., Cassidy Stay, the 15-year-old daughter of Stephen and Katie Stay, answered the door of their modest brick house on Leaflet Lane. Standing on the doorstep was a man dressed in a FedEx uniform, clipboard in hand, looking harmless enough. His presence was unremarkable at first glance, just another delivery man making his rounds. Cassidy, unaware of the danger that lurked behind the door, greeted the stranger. The man, whose name was Ronald Lee Haskell, was no stranger to Cassidy. His face, though familiar, didn't register at first. He had been her ex-uncle, her mother's sister's former husband. Haskell was a man from her family's past, a figure who, until now, was not someone she needed to be wary of. But that day, he was not there as a delivery man. He was there to do something unspeakable. When Cassidy informed him that her parents were not home, Haskell, maintaining the facade of a delivery man, left. But he would not be gone for long. Within minutes, Haskell returned, and this time, the friendly exterior he had shown was gone. There was no more pretending. He revealed his true identity to Cassidy. He was Ronald Lee Haskell, her mother's sister's ex-husband. The moment Cassidy tried to shut the door, everything spiraled out of control. As Cassidy attempted to close the door, Haskell forced his way in. What had started as an innocent exchange suddenly became a nightmare. Haskell quickly overpowered Cassidy, bound her hands and feet, and made her lie face down on the floor of her home. The sense of security that had once permeated the Stay household was shattered in an instant. But Haskell was not done yet. The rest of the Stay family, Stephen, Katie, and their 4 children, were still scattered throughout the house, unaware of the looming danger. As Stephen Stay pulled into the driveway, He had no idea that his family's peaceful existence was about to end. Neither did Katie, who was returning from running errands. The two parents entered their home, and in mere moments, they too found themselves caught in the web of terror that Haskell had set into motion. The rest of the children, Brian, Emily, Rebecca, and Zachary, were ambushed by Haskell as well, each one caught completely off guard, unable to defend themselves or flee. They were bound and forced to the ground just like Cassidy. There was no time to resist, no time to escape. Haskell, consumed by his rage and frustration, was not there to talk. His purpose was far more sinister. He was there to kill. What followed next was nothing short of chilling. Haskell's plan was not impulsive. His rage was calculated, cold, and methodical. He wasn't there just to hurt the Stay family. He was there to completely erase them. Haskell, fueled by his twisted need for revenge, began demanding answers from the Stay family. Answers about his ex-wife, Milani, and why she had left him. He was consumed with jealousy, resentment, and a deep sense of betrayal, believing that Milani's escape was a personal affront to his masculinity and control. As he demanded to know why she had abandoned him, he became more volatile, more dangerous. When the Stay family couldn't provide him with the answers he wanted, Haskell took matters into his own hands. With cold precision, he pulled out a handgun and shot each member of the family in the back of the head, execution style. There was no warning, no chance for them to defend themselves, no chance for them to run. The shots rang out one by one, 13 shots in total, systematically destroying the lives of 6 innocent people. The family that had once been full of life, of laughter, love, and dreams, was now silenced in an instant. But amid the horror, there was one incredible survivor, Cassidy Stay. Despite being shot in the head, Cassidy didn't succumb to her injuries. A bullet had shattered part of her skull and taken off the tip of her finger, but through sheer willpower and determination, Cassidy remained conscious. In the face of unimaginable pain and loss, Cassidy did something extraordinary. She played dead. Knowing that Haskell would believe her to be dead like the rest of her family, she lay motionless, with blood pooling around her, hoping that he would leave. Haskell, convinced that he had finished the job and killed everyone, began to flee the scene. He took off in the Stay family's car, leaving behind his only survivor. What Haskell didn't know was that Cassidy was still very much alive. Despite her severe injuries, Cassidy somehow found the strength to get up. Bleeding, broken, and in shock, she stumbled to the phone and called 911. The moments that followed would become a testament to her resilience. In a voice choked with fear and pain, Cassidy gave the 911 operator the details of the crime. She described the man who had done this, Ronald Lee Haskell, and told them exactly what had happened. More than that, she warned them that Haskell wasn't done yet. He had come to kill more of Milani's family, and he was headed toward another relative's home. Upon hearing Cassidy's description of the shooter, Ronald Lee Haskell, and his potential intentions to target another family member, law enforcement moved quickly. Within minutes of Cassidy's phone call, police were on the scene, securing the area and confirming the horror that had already been revealed. The officers were faced with the grim task of securing the crime scene and processing the evidence left behind. The first challenge was figuring out where Haskell might have gone after the massacre. Thanks to Cassidy's brave and calm instructions, police were able to quickly triangulate his movements and discovered he was on the road heading toward another relative's home. The 20-minute car chase that ensued was a race against time. Haskell had a pistol and had shown he wasn't afraid to use it, and authorities feared he would continue his rampage if not apprehended. The police deployed spike strips to disable Haskell's vehicle, eventually trapping him in a cul-de-sac just a few miles from the Stay home. It was at this point that Haskell, realizing he could not escape, initiated a standoff with police. For hours, negotiators worked tirelessly to coax Haskell out of the car, hoping to avoid further bloodshed. He was holding a gun to his own head, and with each passing minute, the tension grew. Finally, after hours of negotiating, Haskell surrendered, and he was taken into police custody. With Haskell behind bars, the real work of the investigation began. Forensic teams went over the Stay family's home with a fine-tooth comb, gathering evidence from the scene and trying to piece together what led to the brutal killings. Meanwhile, authorities worked to secure Haskell's background, piecing together the details of his life and his disturbing history of violence. Haskell's arrest was swift, but what followed was a lengthy and complicated legal battle that would drag on for years, much to the pain of the victim's surviving family members. From the moment Haskell was arrested, the case became a highly publicized one, capturing the attention of the nation due to the cold-blooded nature of the crime and the heroism shown by young Cassidy Stay. Despite the brutality of his actions, Haskell's trial took several years to begin. Initially, his legal proceedings were marked by delays and postponements. Haskell's defense attorneys requested multiple continuances, which meant the victims' families had to endure years of uncertainty as they waited for justice to be served. Haskell's actions had been the result of psychosis brought on by these external factors. However, the prosecution remained adamant that Haskell's actions were not the result of mental illness, but rather premeditated revenge and a desire for control. They believed that Haskell's carefully planned execution of the murders demonstrated a level of conscious decision-making that pointed to his intent and awareness at the time of the killings. The case ultimately centered around whether or not Haskell could be considered legally sane at the time of the murders. The question of his mental state would dominate his trial. In the years leading up to the trial, numerous psychological evaluations were conducted on Haskell. Dr. John M. Sprott, a forensic psychologist, was called upon to assess Haskell's mental health. Sprott's evaluation concluded that Haskell did not show signs of schizophrenia or other severe mental illnesses, but rather demonstrated characteristics of someone deeply fixated on their own grievances and who acted out of spite rather than a breakdown in rational thought. On the other hand, Dr. James M. Moe, a psychiatrist hired by Haskell's defense team, argued that Haskell had been suffering from severe emotional distress, which had impaired his ability to make sound decisions. This created a dramatic tension in the courtroom, as both sides tried to make their case regarding Haskell's mental state. During this time, Cassidy Stay, the sole survivor of the massacre, was thrust into the public eye as the hero of the story. Her testimony would become a key part of the prosecution's case against Haskell. Cassidy's recounting of the events on the morning of the murders revealed not just her courage, but also the chilling premeditation in Haskell's actions. Her testimony painted a clear picture of the attack and provided critical insights into Haskell's state of mind before, during, and after the crime. In her testimony, Cassidy described how Haskell had arrived at their doorstep dressed as a FedEx delivery man, how he had forced his way into their home, and how, after the massacre, he had left her for dead. Cassidy's words were powerful, and they highlighted the level of calculation and malice in Haskell's plan. Haskell had not snapped in a moment of uncontrollable rage. His actions were premeditated and executed with methodical precision. Cassidy's testimony was both heart-wrenching and inspiring. She spoke about the profound loss she had suffered, the loss of her parents and siblings, and how, despite the overwhelming odds, she had found the strength to survive and ensure that Haskell did not succeed in his plan to silence all the witnesses. After years of delays and legal wrangling, Haskell's trial finally began in August 2019, 5 years after the massacre. The jury was presented with overwhelming evidence, including Cassidy's detailed testimony, Haskell's own written confessions, and forensic evidence that linked him to the murders. The prosecution painted a clear picture of a man who was driven by jealousy, spite, and an insatiable desire for revenge, all culminating in a massacre of a family that had shown him nothing but kindness. On September 26, 2019, the jury delivered their verdict: guilty of capital murder for the murders of Stephen, Katie, Brian, Emily, Rebecca, and Zachary Stay. The jury had no doubt that Haskell had carried out the killings with a cold, calculated, and premeditated intent. His actions, they concluded, were the result of a conscious decision to destroy a family that had once been part of his life, and his motives were rooted in a deep, twisted sense of revenge. On October 11, 2019, just 2 weeks after the verdict, Ronald Lee Haskell was sentenced to death by lethal injection. The sentence reflected the severity of the crime and the deliberate nature of his actions. However, as with all death penalty cases, Haskell would have the opportunity to appeal his sentence. In the years following Haskell's conviction, the Stay family's surviving members, especially Cassidy, tried to rebuild their lives. Cassidy, now an icon of resilience, received widespread support from people across the country. A GoFundMe campaign raised more than $400,000 to help her recover from the emotional and physical scars left by the attack. Despite the loss of her entire family, Cassidy's strength and courage were unwavering. She became a symbol of hope for others who had suffered from violence and tragedy. She spoke publicly about her experience, using her story to raise awareness about domestic violence and the need for greater support for victims. The community of Spring, Texas, was deeply affected by the massacre. Vigils, memorial services, and fundraisers were held in honor of the Stay family, and their legacy was preserved through acts of charity and remembrance. The Stay family's funeral, which took place at the Hayer Road Chapel of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, was attended by family, friends, neighbors, and strangers alike. It was a somber event that allowed the community to come together and mourn the loss of 6 innocent lives. Cassidy's story did not end with the trial. Her journey of healing, rebuilding, and advocacy for victims of violence continued long after the courtroom drama had subsided. Her resilience inspired many, and her courage became a beacon of hope in the face of tragedy. Despite the horrors she endured, Cassidy never allowed her story to be defined solely by the pain and loss. She became an advocate for victims of domestic violence, and she worked tirelessly to ensure that the story of the Stay family would not be forgotten. As for Ronald Lee Haskell, he remains on death row, awaiting execution for his crimes. His name will forever be associated with one of the most tragic and senseless family massacres in modern American history. The massacre carried out by Ronald Lee Haskell was not an isolated incident. It was the culmination of years of warning signs, red flags, and missed opportunities to intervene in a man's escalating violence. The tragedy of the Stay family serves as a painful reminder of the devastating consequences of ignoring signs of domestic abuse, control, and emotional manipulation. While Haskell's actions were unforgivable, the legacy of Cassidy Stay, her courage, strength, and heroism, remains an indelible part of the story. Her bravery saved more lives that day, and her survival continues to inspire people around the world. The legal proceedings and eventual conviction of Haskell brought justice to the victims and closure to the surviving family members. But the scars of this brutal crime will never truly heal. The loss of 6 innocent lives can never be undone, and the Stay family's story will forever stand as a reminder of the fragility of life and the need to address the hidden dangers of violence before they explode into devastation.